What is NERC CIP?
Requirements designed to ensure physical and electronic security of cyber assets required for operating North America's bulk electric system.
CIP
002 focuses on certain parts of the bulk power system, from generating step-up transformer to substation step-down transformer.
Distribution is not where NERC CIP has a focus. Here is a brief summary of each of the NERC CIP standards. CIP 2
BES Cyber System Categorization. Purpose: to identify and scope sites. Identify BES facilities. High impact control centers. Medium impact large generation plants, large transmission stations. Low impact. Identify cyber assets. Programmable with a communication interface. Identify BES cyber assets that have a negative impact within 15 minutes, degraded, misused or unavailable.
CIP 3 Policy and Governance and Low Requirements. Purpose: establishes CIP Senior Manager requirements and identifies required policies for high and medium. Requirements for how you are going to operate. Think of this as the foundation of NERC CIP standard. Personnel and training, CIP 4, Electronic Security Perimeters, CIP 5, including interactive remote access. Physical security of BES cyber systems, CIP 6, System Security Management, CIP 7, Incident Reporting and Response Planning, CIP 8, Recovery Plans for BES cyber systems, CIP 9, Configuration Change Management and Vulnerability Assessments, CIP 10, Information Protection, CIP 11, Declaring and Responding to CIP Exceptional Circumstances. Also identifies 4 or 6 required policies and plans for lows. Cybersecurity awareness. Physical security controls. Electronic access controls. Cybersecurity incident response. Declaring and responding to CIP exceptional circumstances. Malicious code risk mitigation for transient cyber assets and removable media. CIP 4 Personnel Management. The human component staff and personnel. Establishes required personnel quarterly security awareness training and annual training requirements for those with access. Requirements for entities to perform personnel risk assessments and background checks. Electronic and physical access control reviews and authorization verification, as well as timely revocation when necessary.
CIP 5 Electronic Security Perimeter. First line of defense providing some level of protection. Electronic.
Establishes electronic perimeters around BES cyber systems. Defines requirements around external routable connectivity and allowed communications. Also addresses requirements around remote access to BES cyber systems. CIP 6 Physical Security Perimeter. Physical layers of protection. Establishes physical perimeter around BES cyber systems. Provide monitoring and alerting of unauthorized access. Establish visitor escort and control program. Also addresses requirements around remote access to BES cyber systems. CIP 7 System Security Management. Most complex individual devices and assets. Harden and manage and scope BES cyber assets. Ports and services logical and physical. Security patch management. Identify, apply, or mitigate.
Malicious code prevention. Mitigate threat of malicious code.
Security event monitoring. Log, alert, and review. System access control, account and password management. CIP 8 Incident Response. If 6 and 7 have failed, CIP 8 is an incident response. Requires an incident response plan. Identify, classify, and respond to cybersecurity incidents. Reporting requirements for RCSI. Test and update the incident response plan. CIP 9 Recovery Plans for BES cyber systems. When the big bad thing happens, this is the ability to recover. Requires BES cyber system recovery plans. Backup capability of information necessary to restore BES cyber assets. Verification that backups performed are valid. Test and update recovery plans. CIP 10 Change Management. Operating and developing baselines and how we are to detect. if any unauthorized changes have occurred, and performing vulnerability assessments to identify any vulnerabilities. Develop baselines for BES cyber systems. Operating system or firmware. Commercial and open source software intentionally installed. Logical network accessible ports. Security patch level. Test and verify changes do not affect security controls. Monitor for unauthorized changes to baseline. Perform vulnerability assessments. Transient cyber asset and removable media requirements. CIP 11, Information Protection. Protecting data that can help an adversary obtain unauthorized access. Process to identify BES cyber system information and protect it from unauthorized access. During data storage, data transit, data use. Lays out the process for disposal or sanitation. CIP 12, Communications between control centers. Response to FERC Directive in Order 822 to protect sensitive BES data and communications links between control centers. Currently NERC bot approved pending FERC approval. Intended focus could be confusing the use of capital C control centers. CIP 13, Supply Chain. Software integrity requirements. Develop supply chain risk management plans. Addressing identifying and assessing risk when procuring or transitioning. Vendor incident or breach or vulnerability notification. Software integrity and authenticity requirements. Vendor remote access.
CIP 14, Physical Security. Physical security of a facility since they are in the middle of nowhere. Perform substation risk assessments. Required third-party verification of BES reliability assessments. Perform a physical security threat evaluation. Required third-party verification of physical security assessments. That is a brief summary of the NERC CIP standards.